Okay, hey guys, Kian here, and this is my next quick dev update. So, uh, in terms of the client, not much has been going on visually. It generally all looks the same, and I've just added things like threads and simplified collision checks and added enemy spawns and simple things like that. So from here, I need to go back and change the controls from a keyboard to a gamepad to actually to fit the PSO style. And then most of what I've been doing actually this past week is been updating my stage uh, exports. So this is from the original file. This is where I'm at right now. Um, Generally things like if we go back and zoom a little bit more, like here, the lights over here, these need alpha blending. So the game will use black colors to transparency, and that's how they make the effect in the game. Over here, the rotating decoration in the Hunters Guild, it actually does that too. There's a lot of other things in the game, like these textures that they actually use repeating textures to change the blinking lights over here. It's not something I've gotten into much yet, but generally animations and textures. So what I'll go through is if there's anything like this, I need to go through, find the texture, find the animation, and well, not the animation, but find the texture and fix it. And the reason these look different is because these are attached to animations, and so the way I'm handling meshes with animations at the moment, I don't have a really good way to implement blending, so I need to probably add that into the shader if I'm going to do it, just to make it simple and more unified. But then if I go over here and to show you, boom, like there's a bug here, so I'll have to go through, this is probably some incorrect blending issue, so I'll have to go through, find the texture, look through it, try to find address and go for it. Mostly it's just been tracking things down like that, and just kind of making these small little tweaks to make everything look as correct as possible. Forest 1 has probably had the most time put into it, so it's looking pretty good now. The things in Forest 1 that kind of terrify me are one, this water, and two, the water over here. The game uses texture animations to make that look like make it look like it's running. I made before to be lazy, like for the trees, the faces are double-sided, so if you look at it from both ways, it doesn't disappear. And to be lazy, I was putting the entire stage as double-sided, but I made it all single-sided, and I think well, probably not I think, but it does seem to have a very good final result on the client. Forest 2, I was running into some issues with Central Dome disappearing. The game uses sections, so in terms of Forest, there's 16 sections which get broken up, and so if you're in here, the game only draws distance or cuts out sections to kind of use draw distance. And so the Central Dome, because none of this actually takes part with the actual gameplay, so the game numbers this section as -1, and it actually does that pretty often. They'll give section numbers -1 if there's no interaction with the actual character inside the game. And so that was having issues. The door was kind of small and stuff like that, but a lot of the problems have been addressed for Forest 1, and right now not too much to complain about. Let's see, and then caves. Let's see, this is for caves. If you look at it closer, wow, okay, wait, is that? Okay. Alright, so what I was working on earlier today is the game has an orange outline around the edge to show the kind of volcanic glare, I guess, on the floor. And so I spent all morning trying to fix that, but it looks like it's broken again. So there could be something about the face order for that. Otherwise, Caves 1 I'm pretty happy with. It's one of the simpler It's one of the simpler stages in the game. I did have some problems with this not rendering correctly, but that just turned out to be a rendering order when I loaded it back again. So that's not a huge issue, and it actually ended up being pretty simple. So I also made this one-sided, and that seems to help a lot. But I mean, this is honestly the least demanding stage in the game. Let's see. Caves 2. Oh, okay. This kind of gives you a preview of what it looks like when it's broken. So the game uses Vertex Alpha to set the alpha for these for the texture in the middle of the floor. So it uses white, and then it uses alpha to create the contrast of in the middle of the room versus outside the middle of the room. And right now I have alpha turned off for some. The less alpha you can use, the better, if the texture doesn't use it. So right now, this is another thing I was working on earlier this morning. If I just turn transparency and alpha on for everything, it works pretty fine. And actually, I could probably do that in a second. But the less alpha you can use, the less processing that needs to be done on the graphics card, which makes the textures a lot lighter. So you have to go through find the textures, because it's really easy when there's alpha inside the texture. You just say, okay, if there's alpha inside the texture, then this mesh uses alpha, please use alpha. But the game uses a lot of other techniques, like alpha blending specifically, and then I'll also use textures and then just change the transparency to create these kind of effects. So this is kind of the state of the other ones look kind of more complete. This is kind of the state. It shows a better a better example of what the stages look like before they're kind of tweaked and finalized. Caves 3. Caves 3 is actually kind of a simpler story. Let's see, which room is it? Okay, yeah, there are these rooms over here that have this kind of like reflection. They have lights, and then they have reflection on the bottom. This is all done with alpha vertex colors and vertex alphas. There's things over here, and a lot of times like this texture doesn't use texture or alpha on its own. So when I try to go through on my exporter and kind of make guesses about what things are, this doesn't have alpha on its own, so I say, hey, don't use alpha, and then it ends up coming out looking terrible. So this is me just being lazy and just turning alpha on for everything, and it works, and it's single-sided, so it's pretty it's not very resource demanding as it is, but I think it could be a little better. So there's a little bit more tweaking to do on that. Okay, this is Mines 1, and overall it's pretty good. One thing that, oh my god, wait, is that fixed? Is that wait, let's see. One thing that drove me, yeah, it's not fixed. Okay, one thing that drove me crazy about Mines is it has there's actually a reflection. There's a texture here that shows the reflection of the room, and the reflection is actually a pre-programmed texture. Actually, I could. I'll do it later. And so I was trying, and so what happens is you get this effect where the wall comes down, and then this is transparent, but then the textures here are transparent, and then the background is solid, but you still get this effect where it kind of disappears. So you got the rendering sort of like that. There's the electricity. It goes in between these. These are animated and use blending. So normally I would have black electricity, or huge black textures with electricity running on all these. All of a sudden, I don't know what I did in my previous exports. This actually displays something. Recently it's displaying nothing, so I need to go back and track down what I did with that. The other thing that terrifies me about Mines is all these are just repeated textures. The floor is repeated textures. The lightning is repeated textures. There's just Mines. They use repeated textures absolutely everywhere to create a lot of movement. Let's see, in these hallways, these rings are moved and move with normal rotation animation, but then the inside of the rings out here have this moving texture animation, which you have to go back and manually break up and then create a time loop to go through and have those animated. And so things like here, this isn't like it is in the game. You can see through the other room because the solid isn't displaying properly on the back. So this, it's getting down to really, I mean, it's, I'm kind of amazed that the results come out like this at all. That things like this are even possible to bring back the original assets in a different environment. But things like this have been driving me crazy. Mine's 02 or mine's 2, whichever one. I think. Let's see, try this again. Okay, there it is. So mine's 02. You've got kind of things like these crazy lights. They've got a flickering effect. It doesn't always work correctly. Here the floor is actually a huge black texture, and then they use alpha blending to make it look shiny and stuff like that. And then I guess in the game I don't remember if it flickers on or off. These lights are not actually lights; they're just meshes, and then they use vertex color alpha to kind of fade them out like this, and it kind of creates this weird effect where part of it is blurred out and part of it's doubled over. I don't have any control over that. It just kind of seems to do what it wants. Mine's 2, again, they use tons of repeating effects, so that these parts of the texture up here, they need to be swapped out and repeated, and then that's it. Mine's 2 is a lot more forgiving than mine's 1, because the nice part about mine's 2 is I made everything broken down and shattered, and that means there's actually a lot less things like there's a lot less effects, there's a lot less things that move. Everything is like in mine's 01, you've got these little elevator things that are actually animated, and getting them to animate correctly was a huge pain, and so they would be like going in the wrong rooms, or it'd be sticking out the walls and stuff like that. And these are they're just part of the environment. They stick there, they don't really do anything. So there's a lot of there's a lot of benefits in mine's 2 that the problems in mine's 2 are a lot less than mine's 1. So I think if we have mine's 1 working pretty well, I think that means that mine's 2 is actually going to be working pretty correctly as well. This needs alpha blending, but yeah, so it's getting there, it's getting close, and it's just a matter of tracking each issue down one at a time. Ruins I also spent a lot of time on. Ruins has a stupidly large number of vertices. Just the size of the maps is so much larger than all the other maps that just the number of vertices and faces just goes up massively. So I think with the other areas, you can kind of get away with being able to just be lazy and draw the entire map. With Ruins, it's probably going to be a thing where it really needs to load and unload rooms. And then with Ruins, you also kind of get, let's see, did I fix this? This is another thing, like with alpha blending, it's actually huge. It's a black texture, and then it needs to be blended, it needs to be transparent, and then it also needs to be double-sided. So if you see there's one side and then not on the other, so that's another issue that needs to be fixed. You know, if you look away from from some of the more minor details, like over here, you know, just solid colors. I like how this looks, but Yeah, so there's a lot of minor details. I think there's a skybox that I need to add back in, um, and then so yeah. But Ruins One is definitely the nice ruins. Ruins Two and Ruins Three really just things start to get crazy. I guess those need alpha blending too. So issues. Let's see, and you know, things that programmers complain about that no one else really knows about is uh, these containers, um, the glass on the outside and then the inside. Before these weren't being drawn because I had them as transparent, so I set them to solid, and now they're actually being drawn now. So that's relief. But just the original game has tons of effects, and they really push the I don't know if they push the drink out so its limits or not per se, but they definitely made use of a lot of different effects, and the results and and the amount of details in the final product definitely show, since it's 20 years later and we're um, still obsessed with it. So Ruins 2. Ruins 2 is just effects all over the place. Um, there's these little lights in the corners here. I never actually noticed them in the game, but there's these little lights in the corners here. And then if you get them in the wrong direction, like you can see that the light from the fixture is covering up the floor light, so you kind of have to get the render order correctly so that the right thing renders in front, and if not, you get this effect where one cancels out the other, and it's not huge, but it's pretty painful effect. Or, I mean, it's not huge. It's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big thing, but it's very noticeable in the actual when you're walking around. Let's see, this thing under here rotates. I don't. This doesn't seem to be a texture. I think this is light with alpha blending, but I need to track this down and do it. More alpha blending, just alpha blending in effects all over the place. Ruins 2 is just tons of tiny effects. These need alpha blending, but it looks like they're also animated, so I think they use a scale to make these larger and smaller. So that's the same effect that's the same problem as with Pioneer 2. Other than that, I think this room came out pretty well. Things like the rotating signals and stuff there. It's a really cool looking room. Yeah, so that's a thing. And then zoom out, kind of get the whole thing. And then Ruins 3 is just punishment. If it'll load. Oh, actually that wasn't bad. Just another. It's another huge map. It's another huge number of faces. The last room is actually it's a separate object that gets fit onto the end of it. It definitely needs a skybox. These just the texture. I don't. I have to kind of look back at this again with the skybox, because I know that the geometry for this is right, but just when there's no skybox, it looks super wrong. So I have to double check if this is actually just a skybox or if there actually is anything else in that room, or if there is some kind of animated meshes or models that need to be put in here that need to be read from the final file, or if I can just get hold of ADZ if someone wants to mod it and put what they want in these spaces. There's kind of like the beating heart thing up here, and this is kind of the cool thing about being able to mod the game, or being able to see the files like this, because there's so many things like on the ceiling and stuff like that where you never really have the camera angle to actually kind of see some of these things and how they turn out. Ruins 3 also uses tons of cobwebs and stuff like that, so there's a lot of blending, there's a lot of transparency. Not nearly as bad as Ruins 2, but there's just a lot of stuff that needs to be done and worked on and tweaked, and so there's a lot of minute changes and small details that kind of need to be go through and worked out. So this is what I've been doing this past week is tracking down issues and trying to improve the quality of how these stages look. And yeah, they're starting to look pretty good. Definitely the amount of problems I have are starting to become less and less. But until they're gone, I don't know if I'll be able to sleep. So that's it. This is a quick devlog, and so I'll keep you guys updated.